At her wedding, my daughter lifted her glass and sneered. At last I'll have a father who's actually successful. The room burst out in laughter and applause, and I was told to walk out of the celebration. I had already risen from my chair, but then my father-in-law also stood, and the choice he made in that moment turned the banquet and all of our lives upside down forever. Before we go on, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel and drop a comment with the current time where you are. I want to thank the man who showed me what true success really looks like. Kristen's voice carried across the Four Seasons ballroom, her manicured fingers wrapped around the microphone like it had been designed for her. The champagne in her other hand shimmered under the crystal chandeliers, scattering golden light across the 200 faces turned toward her. I sat at the head table, my rented tuxedo pulling against shoulders that had carried more than fabric ever could. My chest swelled with pride. My little girl glowing in her $15,000 gown, silk so white and smooth it flowed around her feet like melted moonlight. That dress alone was worth more than 3 months of my wages, but seeing her radiance made every extra shift worth it, she went on, her well-rehearsed smile widening. This man taught me ambition isn't just about wanting more, it's about reaching for it. The crowd hummed approval. Even the soft jazz band had fallen silent, their instruments resting, as every guest hung on her words. Silk whispered against chairs as people leaned forward. My hands were already lifting to applaud when Kristen turned, not toward me but toward Martin Moreno. "Martin," she said, resting her hand on his shoulder. His Armani suit sat on him effortlessly, without a wrinkle or a strain. "You've shown me what a real father figure looks like. Someone who built an empire, not excuses." The champagne I'd just swallowed curdled in my throat. My hands, still frozen in half applause, slowly sank back to the table. The napkin beneath my fist twisted into a crumpled knot. "Some people peak at 25, Kristen continued, her voice now louder, sharper. She still hadn't looked my way. "Others never peak at all. But you, Martin, you've shown me there's no ceiling when ambition drives you." From table 3, Mrs. Henderson leaned toward her husband, whispering, "How touching." She couldn't possibly understand, couldn't feel the invisible blade twisting into my chest with every syllable. The photographer crouched at the edge of the dance floor, snapping photo after photo, probably believing he was capturing a tender moment between a bride and her father-in-law. Martin's expression faltered for a second, something like discomfort. Beneath the table, his hand reached for Rebecca's, giving it a squeeze. His smile wasn't nearly as wide as the crowd expected. When his eyes locked with mine across the ballroom, he held the gaze longer than he should have, then looked away. "To be completely honest," Kristen finally turned her gaze to me, her tone shifting from honey to frost. "Dad, if you're uncomfortable around successful people, you can leave. I know this isn't your type of crowd." Silence, a beat, then another. Nervous laughter crept through the hall like dominoes falling. "Kristen, maybe—" Erin began, reaching for her wrist. She pulled her hand back. "No, Erin, I need to say this. Some of us are heading to the country club after. The real celebration." Her eyes stayed locked on me. "The members-only section." My chair screeched against the floor as I shifted, torn between standing up and walking out, or sitting still while 200 eyes watched me disappear into nothing. "Well, that's honest," someone muttered, trying to lighten the air. A few guests chuckled. Most didn't. The centerpieces, white orchids and roses that cost more than my rent, seemed to lean away from me. Everything here carried a price tag higher than something in my life. The chandelier above worth more than my car. The wine bottles worth more than my week's groceries. The silent instruments of the band worth more than my monthly pay. I remembered teaching Kristen to ride a bike at Zilker Park. Her scraped knees, her determined face. "Don't let go, Daddy, but fathers always let go. We let go and hope they circle back." She never had. "To success." Kristen lifted her glass higher. "And to those who actually achieve it." Applause thundered through the room. Glasses clinked. The band picked up again, some cheery jazz tune about love and joy. Martin stood, shaking hands with well-wishers, though his movements were slow, like wading through water. I reached for my water glass. My hand trembled slightly from the condensation, the ice clinking softly against crystal, barely audible beneath the noise of the crowd. It had been 23 years since Kristen's recovery, 6 months since she'd stopped answering my calls, and just 2 hours since this reception began. But my mind was already dragging me back to the day things started to break between us. October 14th, 2020, 6:45 a.m. My 2008 Honda Civic sat dead in her college parking lot, steam billowing from beneath the hood, like my hopes vanishing into the Texas morning. I was shoving the car toward the curb when her friends strolled past, their designer backpacks worth more than the cost of my repairs. "Could you not come to campus anymore?" she had said once they were out of earshot. She didn't even help me push. It's embarrassing. The Uber ride back cost $32 I couldn't afford. I spent the whole ride calculating. Transmission repair or groceries, new brake pads or the electric bill. That week, I picked up extra warehouse shifts, hauling boxes until my back felt split in two. I kept telling myself it was temporary. Everything was temporary. March 2021, her birthday dinner at Olive Garden. It was all I could manage, but I had saved 2 months so she could eat somewhere with cloth napkins. She was staring at the menu when her friend Ashley passed by the window. I saw Kristen's body shrink, then expand again with fake surprise. "Oh, hi, this is just someone I know." We bumped into each other. Just someone I know. The waitress was puzzled when I insisted on paying, when I still ordered her the birthday dessert. Kristen left before it arrived. I sat in the car afterward, eating leftover breadsticks alone, wondering when I had become a person my own daughter was ashamed of. The Amazon warehouse job started that summer, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. My body moved on autopilot while my brain juggled overdue bills. The younger workers called me Pops, not out of cruelty, just fact. I was old enough to be their father, yet stuck in their same struggle with less time left to fix it. I kept the uniform hidden in my trunk, so Kristen wouldn't see it when I picked her up. Energy drinks became my meals, Red Bull and quiet resignation. One morning, an Uber passenger, a girl Kristen's age, tipped me $50. "You remind me of my dad," she said. "He worked himself to death for us kids." Worked, past tense. Did she mean it literally? August 2021. Kristen stumbled across my pay stubs in the glove compartment. She sat on the apartment steps, punching numbers into her phone. $62,000 combined. "Dad, that's what my friends spend on cars." Cars, plural. She looked up, and I saw the words in her eyes before she spoke them. "This is such a loser situation." She claimed she meant the situation, not me. But words don't work that way. They attach to whatever they touch. From then on, every shift, every ride, every box I hauled, the word echoed in my head. Loser, loser, loser. "Sir, are you okay?" A server had appeared beside me, snapping me back into the Four Seasons ballroom. The band was playing something lively now. Couples swayed on the dance floor. Fine, I managed, though my grip on the glass was so tight my knuckles had turned pale. Kristen's laugh rang out above the music, bright and sharp. She was surrounded by Martin's business associates, gesturing animatedly, probably telling some polished story about how she met Aaron, not the truth about chasing a trust fund with a heartbeat. December 2021, that was when the final fracture appeared. She came home during finals week, her belongings packed neatly in designer luggage I'd never seen before. "I'm dropping out," she announced casually, scrolling Instagram like she was commenting on the weather. "What, Kristen? You're so close to finishing. College is for people who need to work. I'm going to marry wealth. Not someone wealthy, wealth itself, as if it were a person waiting at the altar." I begged, I pleaded. Tuition had already been paid, non-refundable. $20,000 I'd borrowed against the apartment, convinced it was an investment in her future. "That's your problem, Dad. You think too small. The women I'm competing with spend that much on a handbag." My shoulders ached in the present, the old warehouse injury burning again. My body remembered what my mind tried to bury. My calloused palms, pressed against the slick crystal glass, hadn't softened even after months without warehouse work. Somewhere nearby, champagne fizzed inside flutes that cost more than my daily wage. She once told me she needed $30,000 more for networking, wardrobe, and society memberships. At the bank, the Wells Fargo loan officer had looked at me with a mix of pity and judgment. 18% interest, payable until I was 75. "Think of it as an investment," Kristen had said, "in your grandchildren's future." In the ballroom now, condensation from my water glass slid down like tears I refused to let fall. Across the room, Kristen leaned close to Erin, whispering. Her hand pointed, not at me this time. but toward the gift table where towers of silver and gold wrapping paper rose like a glittering city skyline. Rebecca Moreno stood there adjusting one of the gifts. I saw Kristen's eyes narrow, that calculating look she always had when she was plotting. January 2022, Wells Fargo, Lamar Boulevard. My hand trembled as I signed the loan papers, Kristen waiting outside in the car, already scrolling through Neiman Marcus on her phone. $30,000 I'd never see again, money that funded a transformation into someone I barely recognized. The receipts I later discovered painted the picture. $3,000 on hair extensions, investment hair she called it, $5,000 blown on designer purses she claimed were conversation starters, a country club membership at $1,000 per month. Somehow I'd agreed to cover that, at least for the first year. I'd stood in the bathroom doorway one night, watching her practice her new laugh in the mirror. Gone was the snorting giggle I'd cherished since she was 3. In its place, something polished, crystalline, controlled. She even hired a voice coach to erase the so-called middle-class accent she suddenly found shameful. An accent I hadn't realized existed until she told me it did. February 2022. She asked for $500 for a charity gala ticket. I drove Uber for 72 hours straight just to make it happen. She glided into the Austin Country Club that night in her designer gown, while I sat outside in the car, staring through the glass windows like a beggar at a feast. A drunken passenger rapped on my window, squinting at me. "Waiting for someone special?" he asked. I nodded, but waiting suggested she might actually come back out to me. Kristen studied wealthy families the way other students studied for exams. She made index cards, names, fortunes, eligible heirs. She knew which yachts they owned, which boards they sat on, even which marriages were crumbling. Aaron Moreno's name had been circled in red ink. Martin's son, the only son. No siblings, mother from old Texas oil money. There had been 3 failed hunts before Aaron finally fell into her net. Harrison Whitfield saw through her act at a polo match when she pretended to know about horses. James Chen's mother ran a background check. Tyler Ashford outright laughed in her face when she suggested they were soulmates after 2 weeks. But Aaron, sweet, sheltered Aaron, he believed every carefully rehearsed word. Those transformation expenses bled me dry, but it wasn't the money that hurt the most. It was the lies. "If anyone asks, you're in Europe," she had instructed me before certain events. Consulting work. Very exclusive. Don't discuss details. In the present ballroom, Martin Moreno moved among guests, shaking hands, but still carrying himself like a man walking underwater. Aaron kissed Kristen's hand, and she rewarded him with that practiced smile. The wedding cake appeared next, 5 towering tiers of fondant and sugar flowers, a $3,000 confection. Almost the same as my best Uber month. I'd once cleared $3,100. Kristen learned to identify wine vintages while I drank tap water. She filled her vocabulary with words like portfolio, diversification, and summer home. Abstract luxuries that meant nothing in my world of tangible numbers. Miles driven, hours worked, debts owed. By March 2022, she had stopped coming home except to collect mail. The apartment grew hollow without her laughter, her clutter, her presence. Yet I kept paying for the country club membership she promised was just for the first year. Kept covering the voice coach, even though she had already dismissed him. Kept footing the bill for storage units filled with clothes she wore once for appearances, then abandoned. Polo matches, yacht parties, art galleries, she mapped them all with the precision of a general planning a war campaign. In her journal, I found notes left behind when she moved out. Always be the most charming, never the richest. She had learned their language, their gestures, their references. She spoke of boarding schools she'd never attended, ski resorts she'd never visited, trust funds she never had. She built a new persona, and lived in it so deeply I often wondered if she remembered who she really was. But I remembered. I remembered the little girl who cried when her goldfish died. The child who made me Father's Day cards out of construction paper. The daughter who fell asleep on my shoulder during movie nights. That girl was still in there, buried under the wigs and the labels and the counterfeit laugh. Love was my weakness. No matter how many times she cut me down, I couldn't stop loving her. Even now, as I watched her whisper to Aaron while pointing toward Rebecca Moreno, no doubt scheming her next move, I loved her. The way you love someone who's sick, hoping for a cure even when they don't want one. Sweat from my glass ran down onto my hand as the reception swirled around me. Music, laughter, the sharp clink of silver on crystal. Everything in the room was real, except the story they were telling about how perfect this marriage was, how well these families fit together, how blessed this union would be. Across the hall, Martin Moreno caught my eye again. This time he didn't look away. His expression was strange, not pity but something closer to recognition, maybe even understanding. Like he knew a truth about the cost of success that I didn't. Meanwhile, Kristen leaned closer to Aaron, whispering rapidly, her free hand slicing the air as she pointed again toward Rebecca. I noticed Aaron's face tighten, barely visible, just a narrowing of the eyes. He shook his head, but Kristen was already moving, her champagne glass glimmering as she made her way toward his mother. That shimmer of golden champagne pulled me back in time, to a day when everything had shifted. July 15th, 2023. 2 in the afternoon under the murderous Texas sun. The temperature read 102 degrees on my phone, which I checked over and over, as I stood in the Austin Country Club parking lot, unsure if I'd come to the right place. My 2008 Civic sat like a food stamp, wedged between a pearl-white Bentley and a matte black Tesla. The security guard stared at my car longer than necessary, his hand hovering over his radio, as if I might be there to steal golf carts. I wore my best polo, 5 years old from Target, with a small bleach stain I prayed no one would notice. It was already soaked through with sweat. Inside, the lobby's marble floors gleamed, reflecting everything, including my worn New Balance sneakers, which I had scrubbed with a toothbrush that morning. Members floated by in $500 golf outfits, eyes sliding past me like I was invisible. No, like I didn't even belong to the category of furniture. "Dad, this is Aaron Moreno." Kristen's voice had that brittle, artificial brightness she had perfected. She'd told me to meet her at the club restaurant, not the entrance, probably to minimize how many people saw us together. When I walked in, I caught the flinch on her face before she forced a smile. "Aaron, this is my father." She hesitated, choking on the word before forcing it out. "Elmer." Aaron's handshake was exactly what I expected, soft, quick, uninterested, his eyes already elsewhere before our palms even parted. His Rolex glinted in the sunlight, streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. $50,000, worn as casually as a Timex. "Nice to meet you, Pops," he said, glancing back at his phone. The word wasn't cruel, just dismissive. Like when you pat a stray dog you don't really care about. He ordered wine without glancing at the menu. "The 2018 Sis, if you have it." He spoke to the waiter like he was giving a command to Alexa. $200 for fermented grapes. I thought of how many Uber rides that was, how many pallets I had hauled. "Dad says work is for people who need money," Aaron said casually, scrolling as he talked. "I took a gap year after college. Well, more like a gap decade at this point." He chuckled at his own remark. Kristen chimed in with her new crystalline laugh, one that sounded like it had been crafted in a studio. Martin entered from the golf course 20 minutes later, and I saw the exact moment his eyes landed on me. His face shifted like a flipbook, confusion, recognition, something else I couldn't name. His handshake with me lasted too long, his eyes studying my face as if searching for something buried. "Elmer Payne," he said slowly. "That name." Rebecca noticed his hesitation immediately. "Martin, you're being odd." He recovered quickly. "You must just have one of those familiar faces." But throughout the meal, his gaze kept returning to me, restless, unsettled. I ordered soup, the cheapest item that wasn't literally bread and water. Kristen kicked me under the table when I asked if it came with crackers. Aaron droned on about his father's empire, yachts, acquisitions, board seats. And Martin. Martin kept staring like he was trying to solve an unsolvable equation. When my credit card declined at the parking kiosk, Aaron casually paid without looking up from his phone. "Don't worry about it, Pops." That word again, dismissal wrapped in politeness. As I opened my car door, Martin followed me into the blistering heat. The Texas sun turned the blacktop into a skillet, waves of heat bending the air. "Have we met before?" he asked. "Tech conference? Startup event? Austin's not that big." "I just drive for Uber," I muttered, praying my Civic would start without trouble. "But you seem so—" He cut himself off, searching for a word. "Dad!" Aaron called from the entrance. "Mom's waiting." Martin pressed a business card into my hand like it was contraband. His voice urgent. "Call me, please." I drove away, catching his figure in my rearview mirror, standing there in the blazing heat, phone already pressed to his ear. 3 months later, October 2023, I sat in my car on an Uber break, scrolling Instagram like an addict searching for a hit. And there it was, Kristen and Aaron at another charity gala. Her in a dress that cost more than my car, him with his hand firmly on her waist. The caption read, "With my soulmate at the Austin Heart Foundation Gala." Soulmate. They'd known each other 3 months. Her moving day arrived without warning. A Tuesday morning text as I was heading to my warehouse shift. "Moving in with Aaron today. Movers are here. Not can you help? Not I'd like you to be there." Just informing me as if she were updating an address on a subscription. I drove straight to her apartment, calling in sick to work, losing a day's pay I couldn't afford to lose. The movers were already there, professionals in matching uniforms, their equipment looking like it belonged in an operating room. Aaron's penthouse sat 30 floors up in downtown Austin, one of those glass towers pointing at heaven. "Is this gentleman with you?" One mover asked Kristen, glancing at me in my warehouse uniform. She flushed, actually flushed as if she'd been slapped. "Just go, Dad, I'll call you later." 3 weeks later was when later arrived. December brought the engagement announcement. I found out through Facebook. Sitting in my car between rides, heater broken, wearing 2 jackets and still freezing. The photo was professional. Sunset backdrop, her left hand displayed prominently, the Tiffany ring catching light like a small star. $75,000, according to the comments from her new friends who knew such things. 500 likes, 200 comments, not one mentioning her father. "Where's her family?" someone asked. Kristen's reply, "Aaron's family is all I need." My phone screen cracked when I dropped it. Or maybe I threw it. Hard to remember. Martin's attempts to reach me began in November. A missed call during a warehouse shift. My supervisor threatening to write me up if he saw my phone again. The voicemail, "Elmer, it's Martin Moreno. We need to talk. It's important." December brought a handwritten letter, actual paper, expensive stationery. His handwriting careful as a surgeon's. "I know who you are. I know what happened. Let me explain. I burned it in my kitchen sink, setting off the smoke detector. Neighbors banging on walls, January. He showed up at the Amazon warehouse 4 a.m., standing at the employee entrance in a cashmere coat worth more than I made in a month. Security wouldn't let him in. No visitor pass, wrong hours. Suspicious rich man where rich men didn't belong. The guard handed me a note after Martin left. "You deserve better than this. Let me help, please." Christmas Eve came with a text at 11 p.m. "Having Christmas with Aaron's family. See you soon." A photo attached. An elaborate dinner table, crystal and china. A tree fit for a magazine. Everyone in formal wear. Rebecca's diamonds catching candlelight. Martin at the head of the table looking uncomfortable. Kristen laughing at something Aaron said. I spent Christmas delivering drunk people to their warm homes. Chinese takeout cooling on the passenger seat. Radio playing songs about family and togetherness. One passenger, drunk enough to be honest, stuffed a $100 bill into my cup holder. No one should be alone on Christmas, man. But I was. Even when Kristen was in the same room, I was alone. January meant wedding planning. She needed my signature on some documents, legal stuff, liability waivers for the venue. We met at a Starbucks because my apartment was apparently no longer an option. She showed me photos on her phone, swiping through venues and flowers and cakes like evidence in a case I'd already lost. "Martin's paying for everything, of course," she said without looking up from the screen. "The venue alone is $40,000. The guest list was on her laptop, 200 names. My side had 3. My sister in California, who couldn't afford to come. 2 cousins I hadn't seen in years. She deleted 2 of them while I watched. They won't fit in, she explained, like people were furniture you could rearrange. February 14th, Valentine's Day. Martin stood at my apartment door. I saw him through the peephole, standing there in jeans and a plain shirt, trying to look normal, trying to belong in my hallway with its stained carpet and broken light fixtures. 15 minutes, he said to my closed door. That's all I ask. Please leave me alone. You don't understand. I owe you. Mrs. Chen from 3B opened her door, suspicious of the well-dressed stranger. Martin retreated but slid another business card under my door. On the back, in pen, "You saved her." "Let me save you." I picked up my phone 17 times that night, typed his number 16 times. My finger hovered over the call button like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Pick up the phone, put it down, pick it up again. The screen would go dark and I'd start over. I never did make that call. 2 months later, in April, Kristen made her final demand. 8:00 p.m., April 20th, 2025. I'd just finished a double shift. Warehouse until 3, Uber until 7:30. Still in my warehouse uniform, the Amazon Smile logo mocking me from my chest. Sweat stains mapping exhaustion across my back. The knock wasn't her usual pattern. Harder, more insistent. She stood in my doorway like she was visiting a crime scene. Her $3,000 outfit an accusation against my poverty. She wouldn't sit on my couch, actually stepped back when I gestured to it as though being poor might be contagious. 5 minutes, she said, checking her Apple Watch. This won't take long. Through my window, I could see Aaron's Bentley idling outside. Exhaust clouds in the spring evening. He didn't even shut off the engine. That's how sure they were this would be quick. The briefcase she carried was leather, monogrammed, worth more than my rent. She pulled out papers with the efficiency of someone serving an eviction notice. "Traditional father's responsibilities," she said, placing the papers on my coffee table without touching the surface. The itemized invoice might as well have been written in blood. Rehearsal dinner, $15,000. Bride's dress, $20,000 already purchased. Reimbursement expected. Photography deposit, $5,000. Flowers for family tables, $10,000. Total $50,000. Due May 1st, 2025, she said, checking that expensive watch again. My laptop was already open on the kitchen counter. I turned it toward her, logged into my bank account. The numbers glowed green against black. Savings, $3,047. Checking, 203's available credit, $500. I pulled out my pay stubs from the drawer where I kept important papers and broken dreams, spread them out like losing poker cards. This is everything. This is all I have. She looked at the numbers the way someone looks at a dead animal on the road, disgust mixed with mild interest. Other fathers would find a way. How? I asked. How would they find $50,000 in 11 days? Martin wrote a check for $200,000 without blinking. Didn't even ask what it was for. I'm not Martin. That's when she exploded. Actually exploded, like something inside had been building pressure for years. You're pathetic. The papers went flying, floating down like expensive snow. Absolutely pathetic. 28 years, and what do you have to show for it? Nothing. You're nothing. Mrs. Chen started banging on the wall. Then Mr. Rodriguez from above. The whole building knew our business now. 28 years of disappointment. You know what Ashley's father gave her? A house. A house, Dad. You can't even give me flowers. Kristen, Mom would be ashamed of you. The silence after that was nuclear. We both stood in the fallout, her chest heaving, my heart somewhere around my knees. Juliana's name hadn't been spoken between us in 2 years. If you can't contribute, she said, voice arctic now controlled, don't come to my wedding. I'll tell everyone you're sick or traveling. She picked up her briefcase, clicked it shut with finality. Or dead. That would be easier to explain. I'm still your father. No. She looked at me like I was a stranger she'd accidentally let in. You're my embarrassment. The door slam shook the whole apartment. My one picture of the two of us at Disneyland when she was 7 fell off the shelf. Glass shattered across the floor, but the photo underneath was intact. 5-year-old Kristen on my shoulders, both of us laughing at something I couldn't remember anymore. I knelt to pick up the pieces, and that's when I found it, tucked behind the photo where I'd hidden it years ago. A hospital bracelet, yellow with age. Kristen Payne, Leukemia Ward 2002. She'd been so small, so fragile. The chemo had taken her hair, her energy, everything except her fight. I'd held her through the worst nights. Promised her anything if she'd just keep fighting. Promised her the world. I'd given her more than the world. I'd given her everything. And she didn't even know. I went to my computer, typing through tears I didn't acknowledge. Personal loans, bad credit, auto-filled in Google like the algorithm knew my life. 17,000 results in 0. 34 seconds. Payday loans, title loans, kidney sales. Apparently everything was for sale if you were desperate enough. The computer screen glowed in my dark apartment. Somewhere outside, Aaron's Bentley was taking my daughter away from me again, like it did every day. Like expensive cars and expensive clothes and expensive everything had built a wall between us. That $50,000 I didn't have could never breach. "Why couldn't you be someone important?" she'd asked. "I was someone important," I told her. "To you." That was back before I understood, before I knew what real success truly looked like. The blank application page glowed in front of me, demanding numbers I couldn't provide, promises I had no way of keeping. That memory of a desperate Google search dissolved the instant I heard a glass clink. Suddenly I was back in the wedding hall, my daughter laughing at something Aaron whispered in her ear. 15 minutes had passed since her toast. 15 minutes of me sitting stiff and motionless, while 200 guests celebrated as if I wasn't the bleeding wreck in the corner. They were too polite to mention it. My hands clenched the edge of the table, a silent battle raging inside me. 30 seconds of internal war. Stay seated and disappear or stand up and try again. Aaron slipped away toward the restroom. Kristen stood alone for the first time all night, fiddling with her veil, scrolling her phone. My knees screamed in protest as I rose. Warehouse shifts had aged them 20 years in half the time. The sound of my chair scraping caught eyes. The father of the bride finally moving. Guests nudged each other. Others kept their gazes carefully elsewhere. The walk across the dance floor stretched like a desert highway. Couples swayed to Thinking Out Loud, Ed Sheeran's voice mingling with the whispers that followed me. That $3,000 cake towered to my left, 5 tiers of fondant perfection, worth more than a month of my wages. "Elmer, maybe not now." Aunt Patricia, Martin's sister, tried to halt me with a soft but steady hand. "It has to be now," I said, slipping past her. My rented shoes squeaked against marble, loud as gunshots in a library. The photographers perked up, thinking perhaps the father-daughter dance had finally begun. They'd be disappointed. 20 feet away, Kristen spotted me. Her smile didn't fade. It hardened, calcified into a defensive wall. She leaned toward her bridesmaid, her voice just sharp enough for me to hear. "Security issue incoming." By the time I reached her, her arms were crossed, her posture a fortress I'd never learned to breach. "You look beautiful," I said softly, my voice fighting against the music. "Just like your mother." The eye roll she gave could have strained a muscle. "What do you want, money?" "I told you Martin paid for everything." "Just 5 minutes, please. You've had 28 years. What's 5 minutes going to change?" My hand instinctively reached forward, the same way it had when she was small and needed comfort. She recoiled as if I were contagious. "Don't touch the dress. It cost more than your car." Around us, couples had stopped dancing, pretending to admire the floral displays while eavesdropping. The music felt faint now, distant, like it belonged to another world. "Kristen, I just want to—" "You're embarrassing me," she snapped, her voice rising, turning more heads. "Like you always do." "I'm not trying to embarrass anyone." "Then why are you here?" "Because I'm your father." The laugh that burst out of her was jagged, ugly, nothing like the polished one she'd practiced for guests. "No. Martin is more of a father than you ever were. At least he knows how to succeed." Every word was a blade aimed for maximum damage. She had learned precision cruelty. Aaron reappeared, reading the scene instantly. His hand settled on Kristen's waist, protective and possessive at once. "Babe, is he bothering you?" "He's leaving." She didn't even look at me. "Go back to your Uber," she said louder, making sure her audience heard. "Someone probably needs a ride to the airport." "At least you're good for that." A groomsman snickered. Not all, but enough laugh to make it clear where the room's loyalty stood. "I just wanted to say I love you," I managed. The silence that followed was worse than ridicule. "Love doesn't pay bills, Dad." Her tone was final. This wasn't a door closing, it was demolition. "Leave my wedding." 200 pairs of eyes locked on me. Some pitied, most squirmed with discomfort. A few relished the drama. At the head table I saw Martin shift, pushing back his chair. Despite Rebecca's hand urging him to stay, he stood. I turned away, measuring each step to preserve the last shred of dignity. 1 step, 2, behind me, a chair screeched loudly against marble. 3 steps. Martin's hand landed on my shoulder before I could take the 4th. Not rough, but firm. The heat of his palm through my rental jacket anchored me. "Elmer, wait, please." He turned me around. 200 faces pivoted back and forth between us, like a crowd at a tennis match. Why was Martin Moreno, the man funding everything, interfering to stop the bride's humiliated father from being escorted out? "Dad, what are you doing?" Aaron's voice cracked, boyish panic bleeding through. Martin ignored him. His grip tightened, not in anger but in insistence, and he walked me toward the head table. The crowd parted nervously, gowns swishing, murmurs rising. "Martin, he's leaving, it's fine," Kristen said, her tone pitched high between irritation and alarm. "No, it's not fine." Martin's voice carried the weight of boardrooms and hostile takeovers. "Nothing about this is fine." He snatched the microphone. Feedback shrieked before his voice thundered across the ballroom. "Everyone listen." The wedding coordinator, usually flawless in control, gestured frantically at the band. They froze mid-note, a trumpet dying alone in the silence. "Kristen," Martin said, his voice filling the hall, "explain to everyone why you're treating your father this way. This isn't your business." Her polished composure cracked. "You're marrying my son. It is my business." "Dad, stop!" Aaron tried to intervene, but Martin raised a hand, halting him mid-step. "No, I've watched this for 2 years. Watched you dismiss this man, belittle him, treat him like dirt under your shoe. He deserves respect." "Respect?" Kristen laughed, sharp and venomous. "For what? For being a failure?" The gasp from the crowd was collective, as if someone had sucked the air out of the room. A few guests even stepped back like the words might be infectious. Rebecca moved then, heels clicking against marble as she approached. "Martin's right," she said, her voice calm, clear. "Mom, you don't understand," Aaron began. "Oh, I understand perfectly." Rebecca's interruption cut like a scalpel. "I've seen the way you treat him, Kristen. The eye rolls when he speaks. The dismissive introductions, if you bother to introduce him at all. It's shameful. We raised you better, Aaron." She never looked at her son. Her eyes stayed fixed on Kristen. The wedding planner tried again. Clipboard clutched like a shield, but Martin waved her off with a flick. "Tell them," Martin pressed, his voice lower now but more dangerous. "Tell everyone why you hate him." He paused, and a peculiar smile tugged at his lips. Like someone savoring the setup before delivering the punchline. "Because he deserves the truth." Kristen's face burned crimson. Her glare at me was pure poison. I knew what was coming, the final nail in the coffin of our bond. "You want to know," she spat. "Fine." She ripped the microphone from Martin's hand. "Kristen, please." My voice barely carried. "No, Dad, they should know what you are." The ballroom froze. Phones appeared instantly, little red lights blinking as recording began. The videographer abandoned his packing, camera snapping back into place. Servers stood still, champagne suspended mid-pour. The band conductor's baton hovered, frozen. This was no wedding anymore. This was an arena. Martin's smile widened, his hand slipping into his jacket pocket, fingers curling around papers I couldn't yet see. Kristen's chest heaved, her anger ready to erupt. Aaron stared helplessly between his parents, Rebecca motionless but with a knowing gleam in her eyes. I stood straighter, bracing for impact. The avalanche couldn't be stopped. The best I could do was endure. Kristen's mouth opened. The first word hissed out like poison. "Pathetic." That's what my father is. The word landed like a gavel, final and merciless. He drives Uber at 62. Kristen gripped the microphone like a weapon, her voice slicing through every corner of the ballroom. "And he loads boxes in an Amazon warehouse at night. Do you know what he earns?" She pulled out her phone, the diamond-studded case glittering under the lights. $62,000 a year, combined, that's it. Her pause was theatrical. "My shoes, the ones I'm wearing right now, cost more than his monthly salary." She swiped her screen, the Instagram app already open. This is his car. A 2008 Honda Civic, cracked windshield, bumper held together with duct tape. It broke down twice at my college. Security almost called the police once, thought he was homeless. Some guests shifted uncomfortably, others leaned forward, hungry for more. He wanted to take me to Olive Garden for my birthday. She let the name hang, dripping with disdain. Olive Garden. Murmurs rolled through the crowd. His idea of a vacation? Camping in Texas in August. He shops at Walmart. He still rents his apartment. At 62 rents. Her voice grew stronger with each strike, feeding off the spectacle. No savings. No investments. No retirement, nothing. I had to lie to my friends for years. Said he was traveling on business, always traveling, because the truth was too humiliating to admit. She turned and gestured toward Martin, his expression unchanged. That unsettling smile fixed, his hand still resting inside his jacket pocket. This is what success looks like. He built an empire from nothing, provides for his family. Aaron never had to worry about money, never had to watch his father count change at a gas station, trying to decide between groceries and a full tank of gas. Never ate ramen 5 nights a week because that's all there was. Her eyes sharpened. Martin shows what a father does. Results, not excuses. Martin's smile widened. His fingers shifted in his pocket, gripping something unseen. He couldn't even pay for my wedding dress, Kristen pressed on, her voice building to a fever pitch. I asked for $50,000, a normal father's contribution. Do you know what he showed me? She raised her hand, pinching her fingers as if holding the memory itself. His bank account. $3,000. $3,000 at 62 years old. That's not a father. That's a burden. Her crescendo was met with scattered nods. Some guests swayed with her rhythm. Others shrank in discomfort. An older woman dabbed her eyes with a napkin, trembling. You want to know why I'm cruel? Kristen's voice broke slightly, betraying a crack of raw emotion. Because kindness would be a lie. He's had 40 years to make something of himself. 40 years, and this is it. This is his peak. Driving strangers around for tips while Martin owns skyscrapers. Her gaze turned on me sharp as a blade. That's why I said it. I finally have a successful father, because I never had one before. My head sagged beneath the weight of her words. Each one was true, at least on the surface. Stripped of context, the facts of my life sounded like a charge sheet. Then 3 claps. Slow. Deliberate. Loud enough to echo through the silence. Martin. Brilliant speech, Kristen, he said warmly, almost proudly. Truly comprehensive. You covered almost everything. He pulled out his phone, scrolling with precise movements, that smile never faltering. Except one small detail. The most important one, actually. Rebecca's voice cut in, trembling but certain. Martin, is it time? Past time, he replied. The projection screens behind us, which had been looping wedding photos, flickered and changed. Let's talk about 2002. An image appeared. 2 young men in sharp suits standing beneath a banner, Tech Vision Solutions. Their arms were slung around each other's shoulders like brothers. Gasps rippled as the audience recognized Martin, 30 years younger. But next to him, me. Kristen gasped audibly, the microphone amplifying her disbelief. That's you, Martin nodded. 1995, the day we incorporated Tech Vision Solutions. He swiped. Incorporation papers filled the screen. Your father owned 50%. I owned 50%. The next slide highlighted a name in bold, Elmer Payne, co-founder and chief technology officer. Aaron stumbled forward, confusion etched across his face. Dad, what is this? The man you call a failure built the algorithms that still power Tech Vision today. Every optimization, every process that made us millions. Your father-in-law wrote that code. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Several executives leaned forward, wide-eyed. Tech Vision's algorithms were legendary, studied in universities, replicated by competitors. Photos scrolled past, a garage in Austin, a modest office, then a campus. Headlines: Tech Vision secures $50 million defense contract. Austin startup joins Fortune 500. Each photo showed me younger, sharper in tailored suits, pitching to investors, speaking to packed rooms. By 2002, his shares were worth $10 million, Martin continued. 15 conservatively. Kristen's face drained of all color. Her grip slipped on the microphone and Aaron had to steady it. Then came May 15, 2002. The screen shifted to a hospital form. Patient Kristen Payne, age 5. Diagnosis: acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Statistics followed. Survival odds 12% with standard care. Then photographs. A tiny, bald child hooked to tubes, frail beneath white sheets. Me at her bedside reading, holding her hand, asleep in chairs. The doctors said to make her comfortable, Martin said, his voice cracking. But there was an experimental treatment in Zurich. $500,000 cash only. Insurance refused. Banks refused. Receipts appeared, rejection letters, then a purchase agreement. May 20th, 2002, 5 days after the diagnosis. He sold me everything. Every share. $10 million. Wire transfer slips flashed. Plane tickets to Zurich, apartment rentals, medical bills. On one faded receipt, scrawled handwriting, Kristen ate a full meal today. The room grew still. He lived on sandwiches, Martin said quietly. Rotated the same 3 shirts for over a year. Slept across hospital chairs. Also his daughter could have a chance. The final image silenced even whispers. Kristen at 7. Hair grown back, grinning, her arms thrown around my neck. Both of us crying. You lived, Martin said to her. That's all that mattered to him. He gave up $10 million for your life. Came back with nothing but you. The screen went black. The silence was suffocating. Then Kristen's knees buckled. Her mouth opened but no sound came. Aaron reached to steady her, but she shoved him away, collapsing to the floor. The $20,000 gown pulled around her as she crawled across marble toward me. Crawled. Dad. Daddy. The word struck me like a physical blow. She hadn't said it in 15 years. I stepped back, instinctively retreating, but she followed, clutching at my rental shoes, tears carving rivers through her makeup. Please, please look at me. 200 guests strained forward, phones forgotten. For once the recording didn't matter. This wasn't humiliation. This was something else entirely. I remember the hospital, she whispered, though the microphone lying on the floor caught her words and carried them across the room. You sang to me every night. That silly song about the princess who was going to get better. You never missed once. Her voice fractured, trembling. You gave up everything, and I called you pathetic. I said Martin was my real father. What kind of daughter says that? Her sobs weren't graceful or polite. They were raw, jagged, the kind that tore through the air and made the ballroom ache with silence. Watching her crumpled on the floor broke something inside me. My knees, ruined from years of warehouse work, screamed in protest, but I lowered myself down until I was beside her. Tears streamed down my own face now. Hiding them felt pointless. You're not a monster, I told her, my voice steadier than I thought possible. You're my daughter. But I was cruel. You didn't know. That doesn't excuse it. Her grip on my hands tightened like she was drowning, and I was the only thing keeping her afloat. You never wanted me to know, did you? You carried all of it alone, so I wouldn't. I nodded. The guilt would have crushed you. I wanted you free. She shook her head fiercely, eyes blazing through tears. But I was so cruel. You were young. You were hurting. And No, she interrupted, her voice suddenly fierce. You were everything. You saved me, and I spent 20 years ashamed of you. She yanked me up to my feet with strength that startled me, then snatched the microphone from the ground. Turning to the sea of stunned faces, she said, Everyone here, this man saved my life. He literally saved my life. And I repaid him with shame. The shame is mine. Not his, mine. Her eyes locked on mine again. Dad, forgive me, please. I don't deserve it, but please. I shook my head. There's nothing to forgive. Don't say that. There is. There's so much. I pulled her against me, my arms wrapping around her like they had when she was a frail 5-year-old in a hospital bed. She collapsed against my chest, sobbing, I'm sorry, Daddy, I'm so sorry. Again and again. The room erupted into applause, but none of it reached me. All I could hear was my daughter crying into my shoulder. Then Aaron stepped forward, his voice trembling. Mr. Payne, Elmer! Dad, would it be okay if I called you Dad? My throat closed, so I just nodded. I didn't know, he said, his voice cracking. If I had known. The way we treated you, the jokes, the comments. It's okay, I began, but he shook his head hard. No, it's not. We treated you like nothing. But you're a hero. An actual hero. His hug was awkward but real, tears running down his face. Then Martin's voice cut through the emotion, calm but commanding. There's more. All eyes turned as he spread legal documents across the head table. Elmer, you may have given up the money, but not the mind. Every algorithm TechVision runs today is yours. I've made $100 million off your work. He tapped the papers. Partnership reinstatement. I've kept them ready for 2 years, waiting for the right time. Martin, I can't. 25% stake, retroactive, worth $30 million today. Gasps rippled through the hall. Silence followed. It's not about need, Martin said firmly. It's about justice. About what's right. For you, for Kristen, for your grandchildren someday. Kristen squeezed my hand desperately. Please, Dad, please let him do this. The pen felt impossibly heavy when it touched my fingers. My hand trembled as I hovered over the line. At exactly 9:00 p.m., I signed my name. The same careful loops I'd once written on school permission slips, on hospital admissions, on the sale papers that had saved her life. Martin signed as witness. Rebecca signed. Aaron signed. Kristen snatched the pen too. There's no legal reason, but I want my name on this. I want it on record that I stood here the day my father got back what he deserved. Applause broke out again. Cameras clicked furiously. The wedding photographer muttered, "This is the shot of my career." The bandleader leaned toward us. "Play something?" Kristen didn't let me refuse. "Dance with me, Daddy. My knees, then we'll just sway." The first notes of Butterfly Kisses filled the ballroom. She pulled me onto the dance floor, her head settling on my shoulder exactly as it had when she was 5. "I love you, Dad. I've always loved you, sweetheart. Even when I was awful. Especially then. That's when you needed it most." The reception transformed, no longer humiliation but something sacred. Guests approached with respect. Business cards slid into my pocket, job offers whispered. Executives praised my old work. Kristen never left my side, her hand gripping mine like she was still afraid of getting lost. 3 months later, I stood in my corner office at Tech Vision headquarters, Chief Innovation Officer etched on the door. Same skyline view I'd once dreamed over in 1997. On my desk, 3 photos. Juliana and me on our wedding day, 5-year-old Kristen on my shoulders at Disneyland, and a new family portrait, all of us together. My battered 2008 Honda Civic still sat between Martin's Tesla and Aaron's Bentley. Some things weren't meant to change. Martin barged in, as always. "Board meeting in 10. Your algorithms are first." Kristen followed, sharp in her blazer, smiling like the little girl I remembered. "Dad, the Foundation's first grant was approved. 5 families headed to Zurich. They should know who made it possible." Her office was next door. The Juliana Payne Foundation. "Real work, Dad," she said. "Work that matters. Mom would be proud." Aaron appeared, sleeves rolled, tie loose. "Ready for lunch?" "Martin's making me shadow you all week." "Real business." We walked to a taco truck, my choice. The owner refused payment. "You drove my mother to chemo. Never charged her for waiting. This meal's on me." A journalist recognized me. "Aren't you the Tech Vision founder who gave up everything for his daughter?" Before I could speak, Kristen answered, "He's my father. The most successful man I know." We returned to the office, her arms linked with mine and Aaron's. The same guard who once tried to block me from the country club now greeted me with respect. "Good afternoon, Mr. Payne." The elevator doors closed on our reflection. 3 people bound not by money but by truth, sacrifice, and love. Because success isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in lives saved, in families restored. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.